Welcome to this video tutorial on the Linux operating system. In this tutorial, we will cover the broad uses of Linux, what it is, and why so many people use it. We will also look at some useful tips on how to interact with the Linux system through the command line interface. There's quite a lot of misconceptions which surround Linux, including the belief that it is hard to install, it's not easily maintained, it's insecure due to its open source nature. I will attempt to debunk these concerns as we move through the video. Let's get some terminology out of the way. Kernels are not popcorn. They're the main component of a system, with the job of interfacing between a computer's hardware and its processes. When we say operating system, we are typically referring to either Windows, Mac, or Linux. These systems support the computer's function in scheduling tasks, controlling the devices like mice, keyboards, microphones, and any other peripheral device, as well as executing program applications. A distribution is a Linux kernel packaged with variations of the GNU tools and additional libraries and software, often designed to accommodate a specific goal. Now that that's done, we can begin covering Linux usage and misconceptions. The first interesting fact about Linux is that it's actually in many of the devices that we already commonly use. For example, the Android mobile devices, such as phones and tablets, an overwhelming percentage of the operating system that these devices run off is actually based on Linux. It may be interesting to note Linux can also be found in supercomputers used by NASA, in use with the Large Hadron Collider, Steam operating system, Roku TV, Instagram, New York Stock Exchange, as well as the DoD and nuclear subs, and roughly the rest of the internet. We just discussed what a kernel is, but to keep it simple, the kernel can be compared to the executive of the computer, which tells its subordinates what to do with the available resources it has. It does so through four main departments, which are memory management, process management, device drivers, and system calls. The system works with the kernel to form a foundation on which operating systems exist. To provide a simple example, when we plug a device into our computer, how does it know what it is and what we want to do with it? We never specify what it is, we just expect it to work. Operating systems are the reason these things function the way we expect by communicating to the device manager. Now that we have identified what an operating system and kernel are, and why they are important, we can get back to why Linux is such a great choice. One of the best features of Linux is the price. Linux is free to all, as it is open source software. This means that anyone can gain the Linux source code and is free to make changes and customize the code. This is the reason we have hundreds of variations of distributions of Linux. For example, Kali Linux is a Linux distribution which aims at creating an optimal environment for penetration testing. This system is coveted by many hackers due to the OS and preloaded programs which can be used for a wide array of hacking purposes. Other commonly heard of Linux distributions are Ubuntu, Fedora, and Debian. To get one of the distributions, it is as simple as a Google search for a preference and downloading the file you wish to use. Linux can be installed from a USB as a main operating system. It can also be configured for dual boot or as an OS in a virtual machine. A neat security feature which many of the distributions offer is hashing. This is where a user can verify the download through matching a hash the website endorses as the official hash. This helps ensure you have downloaded what you intend to. The next thing we would do is follow the setup installation prompts, similar to the same way that Mac or Windows would have you walk through and choose keyboard and language layout. And that's about it. Linux is now ready. Next, we get to use the command line driven interface to prove maintenance is fairly simple. Using the command line, which is called the terminal in Linux, we can update the system. With a fresh install of Linux, typing the command sudo apt-get && sudo apt upgrade tac-y, this will initiate the system to find updates and upgrade the system if possible. This covers the basics of maintenance for the system. General use of the system can also be achieved through a graphic user interface. This is the same thing as a Windows or Apple style system where we can click icons to initiate the task we wish to accomplish, such as navigating through files, opening the internet browser, or other programs on the computer. In this regard, it will feel familiar to the competing operating systems. Another myth to dispel is the security of Linux systems is unsecure. Let's explore why that is. The first thing to note is Windows holds a very large portion of the market when it comes to desktop and laptop devices. That's important because when a hacker writes a malicious code to target a system, they still need to write it to run on a specific operating system. So code written to run on Windows cannot affect the Linux operating system. The computer simply does not decipher the instructions of the code. So in this manner, a large amount of hostile programs are filtered due to Linux making up a comparatively minuscule amount of desktop and laptop devices. The same can be said of a Mac system. They simply do not hold the market share that Windows does, so again, security by default. Secondly, Linux's open source nature means that there are constantly people looking at and editing code. With this, there's a great chance that someone will catch something the person before them did not, and so on and so forth. With many people working on the same code, it stands a better chance of catching a bug or a vulnerability. Although this is not always the case, see the Heartbleed bug for an example. Linux also excels beyond the other options in sandboxing, which is where a program is contained and not allowed to read or write other files. This functions as a jail, so the program cannot alter or infect the system. Linux allows for a large amount of customization and can install various programs like AppArmor to do this effectively. Something to remain cognizant of is security is ultimately going to have holes no matter how proficiently we incorporate features to protect the user. In fact, often the user is the most dangerous element of a system, as they themselves can be manipulated to create unsecure conditions within the system. Short of restricting the user from all possible actions that cause threat, and thus rendering the system unusable, there is no guaranteed security by an operating system. With that, we have covered some of the general basics of the Linux operating system. Hopefully, some of the rumors surrounding the difficulty and general discomfort that have wrongly been associated to Linux are alleviated. Thanks for watching.